Now, because Little Red Riding Hood was extremely inquisitive, she began to dawdle. She stopped to look at the flowers. She paused to admire a butterfly. Then she bent down to study a mushroom, and an ill-tempered rabbit stuck his head out and said, "Whoo!" "They call me Little Red Riding Hood," said Little Red Riding Hood. "Oh," said the irascible rabbit, "do they? Well, if you want my advice, you'll stick to the path and not talk to strangers as you go." "Are you a stranger?" asked Little Red Riding Hood. "I was a moment ago, but I'm not anymore," said the rude rabbit. "You don't know very much, do you?" "No," said Little Red Riding Hood. "I suppose I don't." "Why are you wearing that silly Red Riding Hood?" asked the rabbit. "Because my mother made it for me. Don't you like it?" "No," said the rabbit curtly. "Oh, that's funny. Everyone else thinks it suits me." "Well, I don't. For a start, it's too red, which isn't the right color at all for walking in the woods." "No," said Little Red Riding Hood. "I suppose it's not." "It should be green or brown or mushroom colored, but not red. Change it. That's my advice." "I suppose you're right," said Little Red Riding Hood. "I'll tell my mother about it when I get home." I should, said the rabbit, rather hastily. "Anyway, I don't know what you're doing rushing around in red for. These are dangerous parts, you know. Oh, yes, dangerous parts. Why, just the other day I was going—" The rabbit stopped and thought for a moment. "And where are you going, by the way?" he asked. "I'm going to visit my grandmother, who lives in the wood," said Little Red Riding Hood. And she showed the rabbit the custard tarts and the pot of butter. "I'm taking these tarts and pot of butter to her because she isn't well." "Butter, you say?" said the rabbit. "Better taste that." And he dipped his paw into the pot. "What soft little paws you have," said Little Red Riding Hood. I have, said the rabbit. "Well, I'm going now. And don't forget, stay on the path." And he hopped away. Little Red Riding Hood took her basket and continued on her way through the wood. She stopped to look up at the tall trees, and a nervous squirrel hopped out along a branch. "What a big, bushy tail you have," said Little Red Riding Hood. Yes, said the squirrel hurriedly. "But what are you doing here, so deep in the wood?" "I'm going to visit my grandmother, who lives in a cottage here." "Shh," whispered the squirrel. "You mustn't talk so loudly. You never know who may be listening." "Oh, really?" said Little Red Riding Hood. "Who on earth would be listening to us?" whispered the squirrel anxiously. "There are some funny types here about." "Oh, yes, very funny types, and they're not to be trusted." "What a lot of nonsense you're talking," said Little Red Riding Hood. "I haven't met any funny people, except you. You're pretty funny." "Don't laugh. When you've lived in the wood as long as I have, you'll know what I'm talking about," said the squirrel very nervously. "Well, I think you're all very silly, so if you don't mind, I'll continue on my way." "Shh," whispered the squirrel. "You should not be out here on your own." "Why not?" asked Little Red Riding Hood, becoming rather cross. Because, said the squirrel in a hushed voice, Because it isn't safe. Oh, pooh, said Little Red Riding Hood. Of course it is. Anyway, I have to take these custard tarts and pot of butter to my grandmother. Butter? Said the squirrel. I must try some of that. And she stuck her little tongue into the pot. Now I should be going, but do remember, you must be careful. And she disappeared along the branch. Little Red Riding Hood took her basket and went on her way through the wood. As she meandered down the path, she came upon a robin standing on a log. Hello, said Little Red Riding Hood. I've been told not to talk to strangers, but everyone seems so strange. I don't know who are strangers and who aren't. Well, said the robin, if I had the time, I would explain, but since I don't, I can't, so that's that. Little Red Riding Hood, being a very inquisitive little girl, wondered why the little bird was in such a hurry. The wood is such a dark and dangerous place, said the robin, that I come and do what I have to do, and then I go. And if you've got any sense, you will do the same. And what do you have to do? Asked Little Red Riding Hood. Very important business, snapped the robin. My, said Little Red Riding Hood, what a wonderful red waistcoat you have. Much the same could be said of your riding hood, said the robin. But enough of this. What business have you in these dark and gloomy parts, may I ask? I'm taking this basket of custard tarts and pot of butter to my grandmother, who lives in a cottage near here. She's very sick and is lying in bed with no one to look. Enough! I simply cannot stand here nattering for hours and hours and hours. You clearly have not, butter? Did you mention butter? Said the robin. Yes, I did, said Little Red Riding Hood. I have some in a small pot, but I'm afraid it has already been started. No matter, said the robin. I should taste it nonetheless. And he stuck his beak into the pot. Not at all bad, said the robin. I would dearly like to stay and gossip with you further, but I must be getting along. Oh, well, it has been nice to talk to you, said Little Red Riding Hood. Possibly, said the robin. But as a general rule, you would be wiser not to talk to strangers in these lonely and dismal parts. For instance, I have heard that there is a wolf lurking close by. A wolf? Said Little Red Riding Hood. Oh, my. Quite, said the robin. So beware, and should you be so unfortunate enough to meet him, hurry on. Do not dilly-dally. Now, goodbye. And the robin flew away. Goodbye, said Little Red Riding Hood, but the robin was gone. She took her basket and continued along the woodland path.